Now we are getting to the point to where AI can craft the payload, can craft the exploit. It can write the social engineering email. You know, anyone right now, anyone listening, go into your spam folder and look at those emails that come in that are made in, very broken English that you would not fall for. Those are gone.
Yep.
Those days are way gone. AI can rewrite it in perfect grammar.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Imagine the Future. This month in cyber, April 2024. Let's get right into it. Hope everybody's doing well. Eric, good to get back on the horn with you. The month of March closed out with a number of things that hit the last week of the month. We'll do a quick catch up there. We spoke in March about the NVD and how they stopped enrichment in February of 24. We'll talk a little bit about the updates. New FedRAMP roadmap came out last week of March. Some updates on the Microsoft breach from back in 23. And then we'll keep the ball moving. What else we got on the rundown? Incidences and breaches will cover. High level, United Health says hackers possibly stole a large number of Americans' data. Nothing special, but another incident with a large company with very sensitive data finding themselves the butt of the joke. AT&T breach, pretty significant. Cisco warns of global surge in brute force attacks targeting VPN and SSH services. We'll talk about that a little bit. One of the bigger stories we'll hit on is GPT-4 can exploit most vulnerabilities just by reading threat advisories. Study out of University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign found that after running 15 tests, the GPT-4 was able to exploit 13 of the 15, running at 87% success rate. We'll talk about what that is, what it means, and why it's important. Regulatory and governance, new CISA cybersecurity incident reporting requirements proposed for critical infrastructure companies. Not much to unpack other than the fact that that was released, and the public has until June 3rd, 24 to submit comments for their continued refinement of it. The formal document can be found on the register, federalregister.gov. It is a couple hundred pages, so have some fun. And then we'll close it out with some NIST issues digital identity update, one of the first since I believe it was issued in 2017, allowing agencies to use synced passkeys. RSA is coming up in May. A lot of good stuff going on. Eric, talk to me. Where's your head at before we get straight into the March catch up? What's top of mind for you? How you feeling? I know you're slammed right now. I know on the active delivery side, supporting the customers, RSA is coming up, a lot going on. But where's your head at walking into May now in the next couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on right now. I think at the very first of the year, a lot of companies and clients were just kind of in at a standstill, waiting to see how, things were going to start to unfold. We had, issues in the economy. We didn't know, and we're seeing a lot of clients that are starting to say, okay, we feel safe enough to go ahead and, you know, move forward with our investments of doing stuff. And I think that goes in, good alignment with, updates to FedRAMP, revision 5 coming through. One of the big reasons that we are so busy right now is the new red team part of revision 5. So
Yeah.
that has just caused us to, pick up everywhere because a lot of companies and organizations were trying to do certain things inside of, with red team, trying to use some, corporate red teaming aspects. One client was attempting to do that, but they didn't have everything in boundary, so we have to do the red team. It's just it's really thrown a lot of things into disarray and making us do some extra work just to make sure that everyone's happy and stuff like that. So being busy is awesome, but it is very hectic right now.
Yeah, certainly. Well, with that in mind, a lot going on in the space at large. Last month we talked about NIST and some of the frustration around the NVD. Enrichment was stopped on CVEs in February 24, left a lot of software makers kind of out there wondering what's going on. Like, you want us to just hunt these things down ourselves and try to find the right problem and this perfect fit when they don't have enough data necessarily based on just saying, here's a problem. There needs to be more data to ensure actionable follow through. So it left a lot of people wondering. There were rumors around NIST rolling out instead of CV enrichment, but more of a consortium, a different way of approaching the whole thing. And at VulnCon, Tanya Brewer did confirm as such. Give a couple comments on it. Although the official paperwork is not out yet, NIST has every intention of putting together the NVD consortium to make the NVD more relevant in the future. It should be operational within 2 weeks, she explained. This update came the 25th to the 27th at VulnCon in March. So in theory, it should be more in motion heading into May, if not already. But look, I think visibility and tracking and data is a huge piece of this. As we have more incident response plans, standardization around the best way to handle problems to prevent them on the front end or respond quickly, it comes down to knowing what's the problem, where do I have to look, and what do I have to do. And I think that's where they're trying to spend their time to focus so that people have access to information quickly and can respond. They can respond swiftly. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what some of the things that jump out to me are going to be software identification improvements. I see that that one jumped out. So with I guess bear in mind I'm very old, old school in more than ways than one. So the heyday of making exploits and stuff like that were they were relatively easy to replicate back, a few years ago. Even just 5 years ago, they were relatively easier to replicate than now. I'm not going to call them easy. But now things, like there have been so many strides in that, and yet there's still vulnerabilities that are coming out. The bad guys are getting more and more advanced. Technology's increasing. We have, we're going to touch on this a little bit later. AI is coming in and that's going to do things. So, software identification improvements, additional data to track it. But one of the bigger ones, and it's just a single line item on here, is automation. So, having a way to automate some of the analysis is going to be huge. I see nothing but, vast improvements across the board on this one.
Yeah. I think in one of the articles that we grabbed, there was some commentary around like long overdue clarity. I don't remember the exact language, but yeah, I mean, look, they're clearly putting an effort in. So I think we'll see what we get. We'll update you with more visibility into where we need to, what vulnerabilities are identified, what needs to be done. Clearly a top priority.
Because it's, and the reason that is so imperative, I guess, is one thing, is as new vulnerabilities are identified, especially when you're dealing with continuous monitoring, when you're dealing with compliance regulations, things like that. And there's also mitigating factors around it. So if there's a vulnerability and you have to know what makes it vulnerable, how to exploit it, etc., all of those factors come into play around like how do you protect yourself against these vulnerabilities. So having this analysis automation, the extra data inside of it, identification improvements, and it just all of those are just fantastic updates that are going to really push the industry to really move ahead.
Well, we look forward to it. I'm sure we will be talking about it in months to come. All right, new roadmap from FedRAMP for FedRAMP. March 28th. Copy reads, today, FedRAMP program is releasing a roadmap to convey strategic goals and how we're prioritizing our work in the near term to drive progress. I think you'll notice that a lot of this update surrounds experience and quality advisory support. Today, what federal agencies need, this is directly from FedRAMP.gov. Today, what federal agencies need from FedRAMP, need to learn to speak today, is not only computing infrastructure, but everything that's being built on top of it. think a lot of the commentary around this that, also falls in line with the GAO report we looked at is FedRAMP as a program delivering what it is installed to deliver for the community. And that's obviously secure and rapid adoption of high quality technologies. And so that's the question. And when it's difficult to find a sponsor, when it's difficult to get the job done, begs the question,
Right.
is it working? And it's critical that FedRAMP be well positioned to make sure federal agencies get the full benefit of these software as a service cloud offerings, but obviously without opening up the kimono for more risk. The roadmap lays out 4 primary goals. Again, summarize it, good ideas, good experience. First primary goal, orienting around the customer experience, simplify processes for cloud providers, make results more useful for agencies, etc. 2, cyber leadership. FedRAMP is a security and risk management program. We'll make our security expectations clearer, more consistent, etc. Scaling a trusted marketplace, obviously growth. And then lastly, smarter technology forward operations. Look, I think a lot of it, again, it's good experience. I get the impression that they have the model in place. They understand that it's working, so to speak, but it doesn't mean it's easy to do. It doesn't mean it feels good on either side. And for them to scale the marketplace of approved vendors that have gone through the FedRAMP process and gained the authorization, how challenging and stressful and frustrating is that process? Is it going to push people away? Is it going to bring in great technologies to the federal government, et cetera? Any thoughts? And then there's obviously plenty more. I'd encourage people that check this out. It's pretty detailed. The roadmap contains some specific initiatives, agile approach to change management, publish new customer-oriented program metrics, define FedRAMP's core security expectations, keep FedRAMP policies focused on outcomes, increase the authorizing capacity of the FedRAMP ecosystem. That's a big one. Move to digital authorization packages. Okay, a lot of stuff going on. Any thoughts? Obviously, there's a lot of focus right now on FedRAMP.
Right. I would say one of the bigger things that jumped out at me on this one, it's going to be number one, the leadership aspect of it.
Okay.
When being in the space to where we do FedRAMP on a daily basis, we deal with leadership having to make those types of decisions around it. So have them identifying that there are difficult decisions that need to be made. There's ambiguity in a lot of the wording, and the fact that a lot of it is very manual based around getting FedRAMP. Like one of the final things that they listed was digital authorization using OSCAL and things like that. Using GRC platforms, all of those types of things just make it easier, more fundamental to get in.
Yep.
And to me, that's good on multiple levels. Number one, and I'm not trying to throw shade to our federal government, but they have been known to be a little behind the curves at times on some technology-based things. And
Yep.
by opening the door to allow for the commercial side to come in, where commercial is cutting bleeding edge technology, they are the ones that are on the forefront of things. Allowing that to have that door open to federal space, it just improves federal experience. And once the federal experience is improved, everyone's experience is improved. I mean, it's our government. So
Yeah.
those goals, their roadmap and everything, like it's very positive across the board. We at EIT, we've been involved in a lot of the town halls. We've submitted feedback on, especially on the penetration testing side. That's my domain. So we've submitted a good amount of feedback on the revision 5 updates and things like that. So I'm very optimistic about everything when it's coming through.
I think the main sentiment is SaaS is obviously used and widely adopted, but that doesn't mean they have enough. It doesn't mean they're not missing out on great product. And I think the government's incentivized and motivated. Just has to come together so that what's coming to market, can go through the process in a way that doesn't hinder business growth on their side, right? If it takes too long and costs too much to get FedRAMP, then that business then maybe, you know, bootstrapped, maybe funded by, there's a lot of factors in play.
Right.
Deciding, we were talking to one of our customers, they'll be on the podcast in the coming weeks, maybe a couple months, depending on when we get everything wrapped up. They just got FedRAMP authorized. And, they were talking about how, this process started, I think, 3 years ago. And it's by the time they even got to us, they were a year and a half into it or whatever it was. And then once they submitted the packet, took another 10, 11 months, right? So not all most businesses don't make it 5 years. Right. So if the process takes that long, it begs the question, is this designed for innovative new products, or is it designed for the big guys that have 10 products that they want to bring to market? But we can pick that up. All right, keeping going, the last thing, and this will be a high level update, but last summer, Microsoft Exchange experienced a breach. May and June 2023. Last week or so of March 24, there was finally a review. Cyber Safety Review Board put out basically a summary assessment. How do they want to call it? If they want to, executive summary, et cetera. Basically just a big brief on here's what we found after we did the analysis and did the assessment. In May, June 23, a threat actor compromised the Microsoft Exchange online mailboxes of 22 organizations, 500 individuals around the world. They think the actor affiliated with People's Republic of China, not a new trend in pursuit of espionage objectives. Look, there's a lot of details here, and one of the things that we'll bring up later on, but part of the role was signing keys, which are obviously a huge piece of this puzzle. And one thing I wanted to call out, the board reached a conclusion, Cybersecurity Safety Review Board, rather, Cyber Safety Review Board. There's many findings. One thing I thought was fascinating, Microsoft's failure to detect a compromise of an employee's laptop from a recently acquired company prior to allowing it to connect to Microsoft's corporate network in 2021. There are so many factors that when we think through risk, vulnerabilities, we don't always think M&A. We talk about email phishing. We talk about the role of the user. But we don't always talk about the inheritance. When you buy something and say, I'm going to bring this into my world, you take what they have. And so I was talking to somebody, I think that was KPMG risk IT analysis, like in the M&A division, while they're doing underwriting, they do technical underwriting or something like that. And I thought it was really fascinating, but that was something we don't talk a lot about, which is what are you actually inheriting from a risk standpoint if you buy somebody and you try to, integrate systems, technologies, but we can pick this one up later on, unless there's anything you wanted to talk through.
Well, I mean, not to be on the drum around, just the breach and everything, but you did bring up a valid point right there about, the inheritance of everything. And I guess one of the ways that we can think about this is when COVID happened. The world went remote. It just, remote work was an option prior to COVID. Now it is the norm. And so when you think about that, it's, what we are now doing is we have multi-million-dollar companies, if not multi-billion-dollar companies.
Yeah, Microsoft's $1 trillion company when you think market cap.
Right, and they're being protected by a $50 router from Walmart.
One of the things on that note, the Cyber Safety Review Board, what we just talked through, right? Anytime there's this large scale of a breach, they're going to go through their process of conducting deep fact finding and do an analysis on it. And what they concluded was that this intrusion should have never happened. Eric and I talk extensively on this show around, yes, tech is interesting. Yes, there's new technologies that are amazing. People are the start and end point of your security posture. And so this is a great example of what tool doesn't Microsoft have available if they want it. Somebody didn't do the due diligence.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, when you're talking about Microsoft, Uh,
And any company, right? Not to like, and I think to zoom out for a second, this isn't about Microsoft. This is
right.
about how many companies are doing M&A, and they're saying, I'm going to look at the P&L, I'm going to look at EBITDA, I'm going to look at quality of earnings, I'm going to look at people, process, what tech, where they're, legacy, modernized, digital, AI, where are they at in the life cycle of technology and experience in their product and what they bring. Who's thinking about a network on a laptop on a network from maybe a temp employee or intern that was on the books that's sitting in a closet that when they bought the company just came along for the ride. And that's the
Hmm.
opening, the fax machine that no one thought about. But it wasn't caught by a person. So back to what you were saying though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and where I was going with that is, there is no restriction on budget, obviously.
Yep.
But more so, just like you just, said, is um having the hardware there, and obviously I can't imagine that there were not policies that weren't in place against that. What happened was there was a failure of enforcing the policy.
There you go.
you know and a failure of enforcement is that falls on whoever's over that security, um
Yep.
that security department. I'm sure it's not just a little, 5-man group or something like that at Microsoft, at least. So yeah, there's all kinds of things, and ultimately it's, there needs to be checks and balances. um
100%. And
and
that's
that's not something you get from technology. That's not something you get from one person.
it's culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. And so look, that takes us into April, right? Incidences and breaches. A couple high level United Health group said on Monday, I think it was April 21st, I could be wrong. Hackers stole health and personal data, potentially a substantial proportion of Americans from its systems in February. So February breach. Who was talking through this? United Health Group, blah, 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 blah. The intrusion at its Change Healthcare unit processes approximately 50% of U.S. medical claims, was one of the worst hacks to hit American healthcare and payment doctors, widespread disruption, etc. Look, we're not going to bang the drum. Healthcare, critical infrastructure, they're going to continue to be a target. AT&T breach. Millions of current and former AT&T customers learned over the weekend, this was back in mid-April, I believe, that hackers have likely stolen personal information and are sharing it on the dark web. AT&T on Saturday said it doesn't know if the massive data breach originated from AT&T or one of its vendors, but that it has launched a robust investigation. The data breach is the latest cyber attack AT&T has experienced since a leak in January of 23 that affected 9 million users. Again, 2 words here, or really 4 words here that for me catch the attention, or one of its vendors. So when we think through the challenge associated with the Microsoft incident, where they acquire a company, it's a device that's inherited from the acquisition. AT&T, could it have been a vendor? Supply chain security,
Supply chain.
a lot of these become hot button issues. And so with that in mind, Eric, unless you wanted to hit on anything on either of those, I was going to get us into the Cisco side of things, targeting VPNs and SSH services before we hit on ChatGPT-4 and these different exploits. Did you want to comment on anything or AT&T?
I mean, I think you really covered everything. It's all supply chain. It's just vetting and doing due diligence. Like those were all breaches that weren't overly technical. We're not talking day type stuff. This was
100%.
just your normal cut and dry, easily preventable if every box had been checked, unfortunately.
It's funny for the personal development fans out there, like that maybe they read or listened to Jim Rohn. Like, this reminds me, I think it was Jim Rohn that used to say, "What's easy to do is easy not to do." I feel like so much of security falls back to what's easy to do is easy not to do. You're setting up an account, set up 2-factor, like like there's such basic things, and then obviously there's the ocean beneath it of a laptop on a network from a company that a $1 billion company is buying in such detail, but. It's
Right.
easy to do. It's easy not to do. All right, Cisco warns a global surge in brute force attacks targeting VPN and SSH. Cisco's warning about this. This is mid-March, including web application authentication interfaces, you name it. Look, this doesn't come off as new information. It's not a surprise, but I'm just curious if you have any preliminary insight or opinion on what this may mean, why it may matter. But it makes sense. I mean, right? I don't really know.
Well,
Is this what's your
here's my
read?
thing around it is it must be significant for them to bring
Report
it
it.
up in this because and let me give you some insight around that.
Okay.
Being that we set up social engineering campaigns and we do a lot of different things, requires us setting up servers on the internet.
Right.
Setting up a a web server, what have you. In doing so, I have set up SSH servers on the internet. Just makes it easy to hop in. They're not connected to EIT or anything like that. It's a standalone server in like an Azure, something along those lines.
Right.
And generally within, I would say, an hour of it being live, it's being bombarded by SSH attacks, just a
Wow.
brute force trying to get in. There are websites, and I don't want to give them out on this one, that show SSH, ports being open, and anyone who is within the security, especially penetration testing, knows that there are common passwords that are viable, and I have verified that you can go through and just brute force those. Exactly what they're doing, using just very common password username combinations. So the fact that they are reporting on it at this point, because this has been going on for decades.
Right. So that tells you that the volume is through the roof.
Right. And what that tells me is most likely it's due to a lot of these conflicts that are happening right now.
Okay.
And
Do
all
you
of
think
that,
do you think the AI component to it, which we're going to get to in a second, is a factor? Like, is it
I
easier, cheaper, faster to target now than it was maybe a year ago?
the AI aspect, no. Cloud, yes.
Okay. Talk to me. Unpack that.
So before you would have like for instance, if I stood a server up at my house, then my house is where it's coming from. And in order for me to change my IP address, I would have to pipe it through a VPN or get my ISP to change my my IP address. With the
Right.
cloud, you can just one button and within 30 seconds, new IP address, you can't block it.
Interesting.
So especially, one of the techniques that a lot of these companies use is they'll block IPs coming from China, from Russia, the normal places like that. But if those places are piping in and getting a cloud account with Google, with Amazon, AWS, something along those lines, and those are the ones that are being hit,
Right.
it's very easy to do. Now, another aspect, and this kind of goes back to the conversation we had before, why is everything ramping up? Well, if all of these organizations, whether it's nation state, whether it's just black hat attackers, they're coming in and brute forcing all of these SSH VPN services. What's the end game on that? It's attacking the supply chain. We just talked about big companies, $1 trillion, $1 billion companies, all compromised through supply chain. So that's the tactic now, is we don't have to attack Microsoft. We can attack the companies that Microsoft's buying. We don't have to attack AT&T. We attack the companies that are supplying AT&T. AT&T's big on contractors.
Right.
So
Interesting. So
that's
it's a pseudo poison pill, except instead of them taking it,
exactly.
fascinating. Okay. I think it's a good segue. GPT-4 can exploit most vulnerabilities. Recent study, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign has found that AI agents using GPT-4 can automate the exploitation of public vulnerabilities in real-world systems by simply accessing online data about these vulnerabilities. Now, I'll preface by saying the data isn't extensive, but 13 out of the 15 tested vulnerabilities in various open source softwares resulted in a successful exploitation by the GPT, by the AI agent, 87% success rate. Despite the high success rate, researchers note that the capabilities of GPT-4 do not surpass those of expert humans, stressing the importance of organizations to proactively apply best practices. Eric, where's your mind go with this?
Two different ways. Number one, it just demonstrates how strong and how much AI is really changing the game for security.
Yeah.
When it comes to exploitation of vulnerabilities, when you can just take AI and point it to a GitHub repo, and this is essentially what we're getting to. Point it to a GitHub repo, and not only can it find the vulnerability, it can craft you a vulnerability. That's terrifying.
It's fast.
Yes.
And it's cheap.
Exceedingly cheap. But on top of that, now we are getting to the point to where AI can craft the payload, can craft the exploit. It can write the social engineering email. Anyone right now, anyone listening, go into your spam folder and look at those emails that come in that are made in very broken English that you would not fall for. Those are gone. Those days are way gone. AI can rewrite it in perfect grammar. So broken English, bad grammar, misspelling words, all of that type of stuff. AI has fixed it for social engineering campaigns. When it comes to crafting exploits, that is on the horizon now, and now it's just reading code. Any company and in my opinion, the only way you can combat AI is by implementing AI. You have to fight fire with fire at that one. Yes, the employee is good, and I've talked to you about this, in the past, Jeremy. I believe that a prompt engineering is going to be not just a keyword, it's going to be a viable skill that can be put on a resume. That is going to be something that everyone is going to need. And then my prediction, my 5 to 10 year prediction right now is that prompt engineering is going to be something that companies eventually start hiring for.
100%, because you can build this supercomputer genius resource, but if you don't know how to prompt it to create value, then you just have this thing in a bottle.
Exactly. 100%. It's we are on the cusp of it right now. And seeing it unfold is terrifying but exciting all at the same time.
It's a little emotional cocktail, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You good to jump to regulatory? Quick updates on the Fed, and then we'll kind of close.
Sure.
New CISA incident reporting requirements proposed for critical infrastructure companies. This came out. It was talked about late March, but it hit the books on the 4th of April. Department of Homeland Security's CISA officially published its notice of proposed rulemaking, detailing significant new cybersecurity reporting requirements. If adopted, the proposed rule would require companies in critical infrastructure sectors to report on certain cybersecurity incidences within tight timelines, 72 hours for substantial cybersecurity incidences and 24 hours for ransomware payments. The public has until June 3rd, 2024, call it 5 weeks from this being released, to submit comments. Since September 2022, CISA has solicited input from public and private sector stakeholders, you name it. Look, obviously, this is a continued focus. We like that they're doing some feedback. CISA is releasing something that's designed to be a framework, but but it's also to hold people accountable, where if something happens, you can't sleep on it for a month while you try to solve for it and don't allow people to step in. So the question is, what do we expect to come? What are your thoughts? Anything worth talking through? I mean, I think it's when we know more, we'll talk more, but obviously they're trying to make sure that these incidences don't brew.
Right.
Or spread for that matter.
Right. Yeah. It's very much a situation of, I guess if there is a breach, yes, the public deserves to know, especially if, data, if your data has been compromised, you deserve to know about it. The,
And if you're publicly traded, I think that also matters. But I think,
right.
yeah, but to continue with your line of thought.
Yeah, and one of the main things that I think that it will do is by having those regulations in place, it definitely keeps it from being swept under the rug. Because what we deal with from a client perspective, and going back to beating on a drum here, one of my pet peeves is trying to water down that scope to get a squeaky clean report.
Yep.
Security is not about getting a squeaky clean report. And if they're more worried about a clean report than they are about mitigating the holes, then when they do get breached, then absolutely they need to make sure that people know, hey, this is what happened, and people can make their own determination. Now, there are breaches that happen every day from companies that are very, much well within compliance and don't do that. I mean, that don't water down scopes and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that is 100% by any stretch, the reason, but there are companies that do it, and so this is an unfortunate type of thing, but it is one to where there needs to be some accountability put out there.
Certainly. I think it's going to be an interesting development. I don't think it's easy, but I think if as long as the dialogue is two-sided, where they're speaking to the public and the public speaks back and they're both listening, we shall find our way forward.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I agree with that.
All right, closing before we get to events, and then we'll wrap it up. NIST issues digital identity update to their digital identity guidelines. One of the first they've done, I think, in quite a while. NIST is quite clear in this new supplement that agencies can and should be looking to use synced passkeys, provided that the products meet a number of technical requirements, ensure security, etc. It's about a full-throated an endorsement. It's about as full-throated an endorsement as you could hope to see from a federal agency to hopefully remove some barriers to adoption. We're talking about Microsoft, and one of the things that breach, one of the reasons they're talking through is signing keys used for secure authentication. As occurred in the course of this incident, now referencing the 2023 Microsoft Exchange breach. The adversary in possession of valid signing keys can grant itself permission. So, on one side, obviously this is, curious your take on this. Any thoughts? Because I think it's interesting that they're pushing to kind of enable the adoption of this, but it doesn't mean it's all perfect sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a double-edged sword, but I mean, honestly, I think the double-edged sword on this one is more so going to be around the cost of adoption. It's there's not really that much to worry about, and I want to choose my words very, very carefully here. I think it is the lesser of the evils in that regard, but I'll be curious to see how they do it. I think that, if they can get it affordable to the smaller guys, that is one thing, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You don't want federal type stuff to be stuck only with the companies that can afford it, you know.
Right.
So there are certain ways, but that last sentence, I think, is the biggest part, and removing some barriers to adoption is going to be the big part about this, is where I'm excited about it.
We will keep everybody informed as things develop. All right, let's close it out with events. RSA May 6th to the 9th in San Fran. I will be there. Eric, are you coming out? Or are you guys?
I will be there.
Party time. Just kidding. We'll see y'all out there. All right. 45th IEEE Symposium on Security and Privacy. Workshops will be held May 23rd, but the event is May 20 to 22nd. That is happening in San Francisco as well. Gartner Security and Risk Management Summit, National Harbor, June 3rd to 5th. GRC Summit 2024, June 17th and 18th. That is in Baltimore. That is the rundown. That's what we got. So more will come from the NVD updates and their development of their new consortium, new FedRAMP roadmap. GPT-4 is making us wonder where things are heading. And CISA is rolling out some new requirements for critical infrastructure. That was This Month in Cyber, April 24. Eric, any closing thoughts for us before we get on our merry way?
Really looking forward to RSA. I think it's going to be fun, and anyone who is listen to us, I'd love you to stop by the booth and come say hi.
Come say hi. Alrighty, Eric, thanks for jumping on as always. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us. If you are at RSA, let us know. We'd love to take this digital connect and turn it into something in person. But with that, we'll be back soon. Y'all take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.